Maria had always believed in the sanctity of marriage. She had been with James for nearly 10 years. Their relationship was built on a foundation of trust, love, and shared dreams. Maria often reminisced about their early days together, when they would laugh for hours, plan their future, and share small gestures of affection. It felt as if they were the perfect couple, unbreakable and inseparable. However, somewhere along the way, things had started to change. Maria first noticed the distance between them on one cold evening in winter. James was preoccupied with his phone, often texting in the middle of their conversations. She brushed it off, thinking it was just work-related. But the frequency of his late-night messages grew, and his attentiveness waned. Maria began to feel like an outsider in her own marriage. One evening, after a long day, Maria returned home early. She expected to find James relaxing on the couch, but instead, he wasn't there. The house was unusually quiet. She went upstairs and there, lying on the bed, was his phone. She hesitated but then decided to look at it. Her hands trembled as she opened the messages. The conversations she found shattered her world. James had been having an affair with someone from work. The texts were filled with intimate exchanges, promises of love, and plans to meet in secret. Maria's heart sank. It was the moment she realized that the person she had trusted the most had betrayed her. The pain of that moment was unlike any other. She felt empty, as though the ground had been ripped out from under her. Maria's world crumbled as she kept the secret of James' betrayal to herself. She didn't confront him immediately, unsure of how to deal with the overwhelming feelings of anger and sorrow. She continued to go through the motions of daily life, cooking meals, cleaning the house, and pretending that everything was normal. But inside, she was slowly breaking down. Each day, the pain of James' betrayal grew heavier. She would sit by the window, watching the world outside, feeling a deep sense of isolation. She tried to find solace in the memories of their happier times, but they only reminded her of what had been lost. She had once believed in the promises they had made to each other, but now they seemed hollow. Maria began to notice the changes in James. He became more distant, spending more time away from home. He no longer came home to talk to her, no longer showed affection. His eyes, once full of warmth, now seemed cold and distant. Maria felt like she was living with a stranger in her own home. The realization that her marriage was slowly falling apart consumed her every thought. But she didn't know how to fix it. She had always been the strong one, the one who held everything together, but now she felt lost. She kept telling herself that she couldn't let this destroy her. She couldn't let James' actions define her. Still, every time she looked at him, the pain of his betrayal resurfaced. It was like a never-ending cycle of hurt and confusion. Months passed, but Maria couldn't keep the truth from herself any longer. The emotional weight of James' infidelity had become unbearable. She needed to confront him. She had to know if there was any chance of salvaging their relationship or if it was already beyond repair. One evening, Maria waited for James to come home. She had made up her mind. She would confront him, no more secrets, no more lies. As soon as he walked through the door, she stood up, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked at him and then at the phone in his hand. "James," Maria said, her voice trembling, "we need to talk." James froze. He could tell by her tone that something was wrong. He dropped his phone on the counter and slowly walked toward her. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice low, but Maria could see the guilt in his eyes. He knew. She didn't waste any time. "I know about the affair," she said, her voice breaking. "I know everything. The texts, the meetings, the lies. I trusted you, and you destroyed that trust." James' face turned pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence between them felt suffocating. "I don't even know who you are anymore," Maria continued, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this to me? To us?" James, at a loss for words, looked away. The guilt was too much for him to bear. He had never imagined that his actions would hurt Maria this deeply. He loved her, but in a moment of weakness, he had betrayed the one person he cared about most. And now he saw the pain in her eyes, the pain he had caused. After their confrontation, the house was filled with a heavy silence. Maria didn't know what to do next. She had already given James a piece of her heart, but now that heart was shattered. The love she once had for him felt distant, and it seemed impossible to rebuild. She needed time to heal, to figure out if there was any way to move forward from the pain. For James, the confrontation was a wake-up call. He knew he had hurt the woman who had given him everything. The guilt gnawed at him, and he realized that he needed to do whatever it took to make things right. He had betrayed Maria's trust, and now he had to prove to her that he could be the man she deserved. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, James began to change. He cut ties with the woman he had been seeing, and made a commitment to rebuild his marriage with Maria. He sought therapy, not just for himself but for their relationship. He wanted to show Maria that he could be trustworthy again. Maria, however, was unsure. She didn't know if she could ever trust him again. The emotional scars were deep, and they weren't going to heal overnight. But as time passed, she began to see the changes in James. He was trying, and for the first time in a long time, she saw glimpses of the man she had fallen in love with. It was not an easy road, and there were many days when Maria felt like giving up. But with each step, they worked together to rebuild their trust, to rebuild their love. Slowly, they learned to forgive, not just each other but themselves.